For the latest on the investigation, we turn to Peter King, senior writer on football for Sports Illustrated. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So tell me, how deep did this investigation by the NFL go? How widespread were these bounty programs?
Well, it was a 2-year investigation on and off, mostly off, quite frankly, because when the NFL investigated this after the 2009 football season, they sent investigators to New Orleans and interviewed several people, coaches, and at least one player with the New Orleans Saints, and they denied the existence of a bounty program. But then more credible evidence came to the surface within the last 3 months. The NFL reinvestigated. And I think one of the important things in here is that they examined a lot of forensic evidence, and I'm guessing that means emails, and found a lot of evidence in the emails that a bounty program existed. But I think the one important thing to realize here is that there actually are sort of two forms of a bounty. The one that's getting all the headlines and that I don't think is nearly as widespread as the other one is the one where players will be offered cash to deliberately injure and knock out a player on the opponent that week. I think it's the other kind of bounty that is significantly more prevalent, and that is, $100 for an interception here, $50 for a forced fumble or something like that. So I don't believe that every team in the league is offering players $1,500 to knock out the opposing quarterback every Sunday in the league. I think it's rare, in fact.
So why did this cross a particular boundary? Why is there so much of an outrage over this?
I think it's because over the last 18 months, the NFL in the middle of the 2010 season, had a horrible weekend where there were 3 or 4 very violent hits and collisions. And the NFL at that point decided to really ratchet up the fines and the possible suspensions of players for what they considered over-the-top hits. The NFL has been confronted with more than 50 players in the last few years who were suing the National Football League because they feel that the league knew a lot about head trauma and concussions and did absolutely nothing about it. So I think one of the things that the league thought when they started hearing this, and why it upset the commissioner, Roger Goodell, so much, is he's saying, hey, on the one hand, we're trying to prevent these really serious hits and to try to make the game, if possible, a little bit safer. And now you got a rogue outfit, at least some people on the defense of the New Orleans Saints who are encouraging players by incentivizing them to go out and injure the opposing quarterback or somebody on the opponent. So I think, those two things are at such cross purposes that it's going to force Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the league, to hand down some very severe sanctions.
So how does the NFL change the culture of the sport? I mean, on high school football on Friday nights and college football on Saturdays, you see the stickers on the sides of the helmets for when kids make big plays. And it seems like this is an extension of that incentive structure.
Big plays are one thing, and tremendously hard hits in making a tackle, that's another thing. But if there is this subculture involving some teams in the NFL where they look on film on Friday and they say, okay, there's the quarterback. In this case, here's Brett Favre. If you knock him out of the game, we're going to win. So I'm going to pay you $10,000 as an extra motivation to go knock Brett Favre out of the game. And I think that is where the NFL feels that we just can't have that. We can't have this extra motivation to try to deliberately injure star players, when on the other hand, they're fining people severely right now to try to prevent some of these colossal hits, and illegal hits that they're seeing.
So what kind of repercussions are we likely to see here? How seriously is the NFL likely to take this?
I think the NFL is going to take it very seriously. I believe that the assistant coach that was most involved, who's already admitted that he was knee-deep in this bounty program, Greg Williams, who's now with the St. Louis Rams, I believe he'll be suspended for at least half of the upcoming season and won't be able to coach. And then I believe that the people who, at the very least, Sean Payton, the head coach of the Saints, Mickey Loomis, the general manager of the Saints. The NFL believes at the very least that they lost institutional control over what was going on the defensive side of the ball. I believe both of those men will get suspended as well. And I think some players, like the aforementioned Jonathan Vilma, a prominent linebacker on the team, who, according to the National Football League, offered his teammates $10,000 to take out Brett Favre in the championship game 3 years ago.
All right, Peter King from Sports Illustrated. Thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome.